Well, thanks for joining us today on the Big Blue Podcast. I'm Leigh Goodson, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Greg Stone, Provost of the Metro campus here at the McKeon Center for Creativity at Metro. And we're excited today because we have Josh Baker with us, who has actually is our first, is that right, Greg?
Our first returning guest.
Our first returning guest, completely different topic, but we are excited to have you back with us today, Assistant Professor of Mathematics and a Faculty Department Chair.
Yeah.
So that new department chair gig, how's that going? This is off script, by the way.
It is. Actually,
Yeah.
you are going to the one of the bottom questions,
Oh, I
which
am?
is fine.
Okay, yeah.
No, I would say that it's an adventure. It's an evolving event.
Evolving adventure.
Yeah, it's so it's interesting. It's part of the fun of working at a community college because no 2 days are the same.
Every
No two
day's a new
semesters.
day.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen. But I will say that I have enjoyed my time so far, and through our first implementation of this, mine is going to be a 4-year stint. So I'm loving it. I like
Good.
it. It's interesting. The thing that I like the most about it is I travel to different campuses every week to meet with faculty, and so seeing the different flavors of things that go on at the campuses is interesting and fun, and I really like doing that.
That's good. And how they can collaborate and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I'm getting way off track here. I know we're going to get to that point.
You're the president. You
I'm
get
the
us off
president.
You do what you want to
That
do.
sounds like something Cindy Hess would say. Okay, but we're here to talk about specifically something that you're working on, which is the corequisite model for math. And some may not know, who are listening to the Big Blue Podcast here on the Creativity Channel, some may not understand what the requirements have been that have been passed down from the state. We're actually, you want to talk about that just a little bit, and then can you talk a little bit about the Dana Center too? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so the Dana Center has come out with a Quantway, a Statway, and all of these different multiple credit-bearing math classes that students can offer. They're in a little bit of a different situation because in Texas they have the adult basic education requirement, meaning that if students don't satisfy that, they cannot enroll in any classes.
Okay.
Oklahoma being open access, we're in a little bit of a different situation because of that. So the mandates that we've got coming down the road are that starting in the fall of 2017, students have to be able to be enrolled in their gateway credit-bearing math course within a year. And then the next fall, the mandate is that students have to be offered more than one credit-bearing math class as an option. So in the summer, right after the whole faculty department chair thing was determined, and we knew who all the players were going to be, we got together as a math faculty, and the department chairs, the other two being Diane Trimble and Jackie Swicegood from West Campus, we got together with the faculty and we said, hey, listen, we're either going to do this all at one time or we're going to do it 1 year at a time. And we really didn't see a reason to create something and then go back and completely retool it. So corequisite remediation is what's going to be required in order to pull this off. Right now at TCC, we have 3 developmental math courses that students might have to take: basic math, beginning algebra, intermediate algebra, before they get to the credit-bearing class of college algebra. So,
which for years has been the standard course.
Yes, it's
everything.
been, yes, everybody has to go to college algebra because that's what
you do.
exactly.
That's a long road before you get to your credit-bearing
Absolutely.
class. Yes.
So one of the ways that we're going to be able to pull this off is that we're going to do what you alluded to being corequisite remediation. So once a student comes out of a class like a beginning algebra, they are going to be enrolled in a course that we're going to call Essentials for Precalculus or Essentials for Quantitative Reasoning, and those are going to be our 2 options. Precalculus is going to be a renaming of college algebra, And eventually we're going to retool that and make it a little bit more rigorous. And then quantitative reasoning is going to be basically the credit-bearing math class that non-STEM majors should choose, or also business majors who are going to end up having to take business calculus. Quantitative reasoning will be a prerequisite for our statistics course, but it won't serve as a prerequisite for the business calculus course. So STEM majors and people who have to take business calculus should go towards the pre-calculus route. So what's going to happen starting in the fall is, for, if you meet 2 days a week, for an hour and 20 minutes, you're going to be in a pre-calculus class. And then you're going to have your 10-minute break. And then for the next hour and 20 minutes, you're going to be in your essentials class, where we're going to do a lot of just-in-time remediation, just-in-time delivery of information that you're going to need. And the pre-calculus team, which I'm associated with, we have a head start because we are running pilots of that right now. And I'm teaching one of those courses, one of those paired courses right now. And in my class, it's working really, really well. A lot of success from those students who are in the essentials class. It's working to the degree where I would say that on my 2 tests that we've taken so far, their average is higher than the people who are just enrolled in college algebra, which is interesting because
That's great news.
Yeah.
Because what we're really doing is creating an opportunity for those students to be successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of the things that's going on with it. We call it our Mathways project. So you got the Pathways initiative that's going on. We're calling it Mathways. And so we're doing Math Foundations 1 as our lowest level, Math Foundations 2, and then from there you will branch to either Essentials with Precalculus or Essentials with Quantitative Reasoning.
And similarly, I know in School of Liberal Arts and Communication, the same foundation's title is being used for reading and writing in their co-rec redesign. So.
And that's we have a foundations team that's working too, and Joyce Frisky is one of the Kellogg participants, and so that's one of the reasons that we went with that name. So the 2017 mandate, we need 75% of our students to at least place into Math Foundations 2, because then they can take that in the fall, then they can take their essentials with Precalculus or essentials with Quantitative Reasoning in the spring. It will satisfy that mandate, and then it will also satisfy the next year's mandate. And we chose those 2 courses when we had the CoRec conference in June at the Northeast campus. We chose those that day because Math 1513 and Math 1473 are already on the CEP matrix, the transfer matrix. So they are going to be accepted at our transfer institution. So we wanted to stay within the boundaries of what would transfer, but also go ahead and go as far as we could.
So what's the work been like to pull this off?
Well, at that June faculty meeting, we passed around sign-up sheets for teams, and at that meeting we created 3 teams: a pre-calculus team, a quantitative reasoning team, and an implementation team. And so Tricia Scholar is the faculty that is getting release time to lead the pre-calculus team. Diane Trimble is the faculty department chair liaison for the quantitative reasoning team, which Ann Fisher is leading. I'm the one for the pre-calculus team. And then for the implementation team, Jackie Swicegood is the faculty department chair that's associated with the team that Lance is leading. And so that implementation team, one of the heavy lifts there was this spring getting ready for the schedule for the fall. And that was a very impressive way that they accomplished that. They got in a room, they hunkered down, and they got it figured out. And so those are the 3 teams that were formed that day. And we went into this whole idea not assuming that the developmental class that was behind the essentials classes was going to be the same thing. So the pre-calculus team started with pre-calculus, developed the essentials, and then said, all right, what do students have to know before they get to essentials? Quantitative reasoning did the same thing. And so then at that point, we looked at what was needed. And if they were enough alike, we were just going to call it one course. And that's what happened. But we didn't want to go into it assuming that it would be, because that could be dangerous. Sure. So that's what we did. And then we've got the foundations team that's started our work with Math Foundations 1 and 2, and that's led by Dr. Joyce Frisk, and then I'm Frisky, and I am associated with that team as well.
Great. A lot of work.
Absolutely.
It's exciting, though, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's fun. And the thing that I say to people is TCC is going through a lot of changes, but
really. When did that happen?
Are you excited about that?
They just people who are listening to this in their car just pulled over because they're shocked that there are things that are changing. But the changes that I'm involved with, I truly believe are going to make our college a more efficient place and a more student-friendly place, and a place where people can go to succeed. The whole to and through idea. I mean, that's what we've got to get. We've got to get students to our institution and through our institution.
Right. So they're ready to go out into the workforce or transfer.
Absolutely. And we really had a change of our paradigm, really, whenever we were at the corequisite conference, because one of the speakers that was there was from Ivy Tech in Indiana. Mm-hmm. And he said, because we were talking to him about, we've got OSU, we've got NSU, we've got all these places that our students go. And he goes, I know you want your students to graduate there, but you want them to graduate here first, right? And it was just like, okay. Oh. It's like a light bulb moment. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what we've got to do. We've got to increase our graduation. They're going to go to their transfer institutions, and of course we want them to succeed. But first we got to get them through us.
Right.
So that's really...
It's a mindset.
Absolutely. It was a great
change. It's a paradigm shift. Yeah. Well, Professor Josh Baker is our guest today on the Big Blue Podcast, and we're talking about math pathways and developmental education redesign in math, which... math can be scary, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I just know I talk to my own kids, I talk to my kids' friends, you talk to your students. Whenever I meet with students, they're like, how much math do I have to take to get this degree? Not only that, which degree requires the least amount of math? Right. Yeah. Do you ever get that question?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so it's scary. So this is something... I think I've been so off script today, Greg, but I think the other class, interesting that we had an interview on an earlier podcast with Beth Kopic, the other class that causes a tremendous amount of stress for students is speech.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So it's speech and college algebra or whatever their math class is. So those are the two most stressful ones. But most of us
Maybe we should have a speech math class. And then we'd really freak them out.
Well, that's all they could take in that semester. They'd have to be so squarely focused they couldn't do anything else. And there'd have to be probably a support group around that whole cohort there. But we're familiar with college algebra as the primary college math requirement, and now we have this quantitative reasoning option. Mm-hmm. So how do students decide which one's right for them, and how are you working with advisors to coach
Absolutely.
them on what the right route is? Can you talk about that work?
So one of the other things that's changing is we have embedded advisors in our schools, and so the School of Math and Science, we have Miss Pickering, and she is amazing.
She is great.
Amazing. She's one of the oracles of TCC. She knows just about everything that's ever happened here. And so the implementation team is working very closely with them. And the implementation team, as well as the other faculty department chairs, we also really worked with with all the other faculty department chairs when they were in the mapping process. Mm-hmm. And so if you're a student and you are wanting to know which math class should I take, you really need to pay attention to what that map is. What does your program's map say? And a strategy that I'm involved with is working on getting those online and getting this implemented, getting it ready, getting it in a format that's student-friendly, advisor-friendly, so that everybody has the correct information. But in my mind, a simple rule is this. If you are not a STEM major and you do not have to take business calculus, you're probably going to need to go through the quantitative reasoning route. I mean, if there's a journalism major out there, you don't need to know how to graph a rational function. You don't. What you need to know is when you read a research journal and they cite statistics, you need to know what those statistics mean.
So is quantitative reasoning mostly statistics?
I'm not on that team, so I
Okay.
can't speak directly to it. It's not
That's
mostly statistics.
A different guest for the Big Blue podcast.
Yes, that
Okay.
would either be Ann Fisher or Diane Trimble as those team leaders. But it does have statistics in it. I mean, it's really just more appropriate things that you need to know.
Things you need to know.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing exponential growth and decay and precalculus, and so, yeah, psychology people, they probably don't need to know that. So that's really, but again, back to the students, what should you do? You should go talk to advisors, and you should pay attention to what's on your map.
Yeah, exactly.
Good advice.
Josh, just a quick question before Dr. Goodson asks the big question at the end, but there's a third option, if I remember right, sort of being talked about at the state level. That
Yeah.
would be in addition to the quantitative and in addition to the pre-calc. What's that third option, and when will we know if that's a done deal or not?
Well, in my mind, I'm going to wait until it's on the CEP transfer matrix.
Okay.
Once something is on there, we'll look at it.
Then we'll move on.
And they're looking at as many as 5 different options.
Oh, so it's not just maybe one more.
Exactly.
Oh,
and
wow.
here's the thing. Like, the mandate isn't every institution has to offer all of them. The mandate is every institution has to offer more than one. Now,
Gotcha.
because of
Okay.
what we are, we should probably try to
We
offer as
probably
many.
have to offer as many as possible.
As many as
I got it.
possible. The next possible one that's coming, the most likely thing that I see us adding in the next year would be a modeling class. And it would be for those business majors who need to take business calculus but don't necessarily need all of the content that's in pre-calculus to succeed at that level. So modeling is probably the next one that's coming down the road for us. But again, if it's not on the matrix, I mean, we really shouldn't offer it, because then if a student transfers, that institution might not accept it.
Right.
And that's what we really want to avoid, is that situation right there.
And Josh, for our listeners who wouldn't know, CEP stands for,
I don't even remember what it stands for.
I think it's course equivalency.
Yeah, something like that. It's the transfer matrix.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the transfer
I should have checked my
matrix.
acronyms before
Okay,
I
I'm
came
I
sorry.
don't remember the P either.
Okay, we'll
It's a
look
mystery.
it up while
It's a
we're on
mystery.
here. Okay. Okay, so the Big Blue question that we ask, and I think we may have asked you this last time, and so I wonder if it's different. We should do a comparison. Do you remember how you answered it last time?
I do not.
Okay.
I don't remember what I said yesterday.
Okay,
So,
that's good. That makes at least 2 of us. But if you could go back and ask give advice to your 18-year-old self, given whatever circumstances were surrounding your life at that time, getting out of high school, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
2 things. One,
Okay.
if you follow your heart, you're not going to go wrong. And 2, at that point, I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I knew that I wanted to be a teacher when I was a
Wow.
sophomore in high school. And that's a whole different story. But since I knew I wanted to be a teacher, I would just tell myself, listen, after 19 years of doing this, you're going to have so much fun. You're going to love your job. And so just do the things that it takes to make yourself the most prepared that you can be to be the best teacher for your students, because you're going to love them and you're going to want to do your best for them. And make sure that you become the lifelong learner that you want your students to be. That's what I would say.
That's good advice. Be the best you can be,
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
whatever you're going to be.
Just trying to be the best version of me I can.
Well, you've been listening to the Big Blue podcast, and thanks to Josh Baker, our first repeat guest on the show. And thank you for listening. Remember, you can catch us each week on the Big Blue podcast in the week at TCC and on the Creativity channel on YouTube. We will see you next time.
Have a great week. Thanks, Josh.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks.